going to continue now, and I welcome to the podium, I believe, firefighter paramedic Josh Havner. And that's not Josh.
Hi, I'm not Josh. I'm Brett Harshbarger. I'm the union president of Local 1638 Detroit Firefighters here. As president of Local 1638, I'm tasked with representing 38 professional firefighters. These firefighters are very passionate about what they do, and every one of them is willing to come up here and speak out against this. However, time constraints, not possible. I would like to defer my comments to firefighter Josh Havner. And I also, while I'm up here, like to introduce Steve Lazarus, our representative from Hardin Lazarus Lewis. He's our counsel. And John Harvey, he's our 4th District Vice President for the Association of Ohio Firefighters. And if time permits, I'd like to also introduce to you Bill Schaefer, kind of wrap things up. He's a firefighter paramedic for Troy, and he's almost retired, so won't be too rough on him. Josh?
We are speaking out tonight in our displeasure and concern with the chief's recommendations to hire part-time firefighters and not fill the 3 unfunded and vacant positions. We feel that this is a step backwards and this is not a trend in today's fire service. In the chief's presentation, the fire departments, he compares us to our suburb cities or township departments. And most, if not all of them, have went from an all-volunteer department to a blended part-time, full-time department. Some of the numbers you've heard in this presentation are inaccurate. Hiring part-time firefighters is far more expensive than the presentation states. We are confident that all of the issues are not imagined, contrary to what is quoted in this presentation. Piqua and Xenia fire departments have recently considered hiring part-time firefighters, but after extensive research, they found that the minimal savings were not worth the problems associated with the part-time program. We've supplied you guys with a copy of Piqua's study. The City of Delaware's program, they initiated a program, I believe in 1998, lasted approximately 3 years. It failed miserably and only lasted, like I said, approximately 3 years. Many, if not all, the departments in his presentation have said that if current firefighters do not support the hiring of part-time firefighters, that it will not succeed. They said that you have to have full support for this to be successful. If you would please consider the city's motto, civic pride is citywide. Our city is all about being the best it can be. Why can't the fire department be the best that it can be? The citizens of Troy do not deserve a part-time fire department. They deserve the best fire department. This is not a city of minimums. We are a city that far exceeds other comparable cities. So why would we want a second-rate fire department? If you or your family was in trouble, wouldn't you want the highest trained and most experienced firefighters there to rescue them? If you look at the fire department as an insurance policy, how many of us pay for the minimum coverage? We are the county seat and should be the flagship of the county. There should be a lot of questions asked about how we've gotten to this point. NFPA has been around for a long time. The chief even states that this is the first comprehensive staffing analysis in recent history, and the question we ask is why. We feel that there has been a blatant disregard for our concerns and opinions on this issue from the chief. He has never asked for the firefighters' input on this. In fact, when he was asked what he expected from the firefighters, he stated nothing. We feel that the chief should have come to us first with this idea where we could have had an open dialogue about our opinions and concerns prior to presenting this to city council. There are several other options to be discussed. We could fill our unfunded vacant positions, raise the minimum man to 9, and do some simple restructuring and meet NFPA 1710 and help better the ISO. This is by far the worst possible scenario for the citizens of this wonderful city. We are confident that if we could have the opportunity to discuss all the options, we could come to a better conclusion than part-time firefighters. We take great pride in serving the city. We have families and businesses located in Troy, and we want to be able to provide not only for our families, but the citizens of Troy with the best service possible. And I also have a quote from a previous Piqua Fire Chief, the late Greg Fashner, from when he was defending this type of proposal in pick one. And he stated, in my opinion, there's another ballgame in town. It is called safety. Who wants to live where there's a second-class safety service? After all, isn't that one of the main reasons for being in a city? Let's not take a giant step back, and that is what the alternatives discussed here amount to. We should try to keep what we have and plan to improve the future. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Lazarus, and I'm the attorney for Local. I am the owner of a law firm in Cincinnati, Ohio. We represent dozens of fire unions across the state of Ohio. I wanted to present you with several issues. Try to start out by giving you a notebook. Everybody should have a notebook that has certain documents in it. The first part of that notebook is the bullet points of some of the concerns and issues relating to utilizing part-time firefighters. The basis of that document are three significant studies that have been done on this issue. One in Deerfield, one in Piqua, and one in Fairfield. And they're lengthy studies. I think the shortest one is about 25 pages. The other two are in excess of 70 pages. And these are actual studies. These are departments that dove into this issue and analyzed all the issues, not with anecdotes, but actually have a lot of information and utilizing different departments for that purpose. So I want to start out and go through the outline, the bullet points. I'm not going to hit them all here, but I want to address something that really hasn't been talked about tonight, and that is the interrelation between what's being proposed here and the collective bargaining agreement with the full-time firefighters. Specifically, section 1.1 of the collective bargaining agreement states that the city recognizes the union as the sole exclusive bargaining agent for uniformed employees below the rank of assistant chief in the fire department, but excluding all other employees. Okay. These part-time firefighters will be uniformed employees, and no one has suggested otherwise. If they're uniformed employees, they fall under this union contract. That means they fall under the provisions of this contract, including wages, including uniform allowance, including longevity. So there are lots and lots of cost implications that have not been addressed here. You have a proposal that says, well, we're just going to pay $13 an hour. That's not what the union contract calls for as far as wages. If there is an attempt to create what in effect is union work with these part-time firefighters, they must follow that union contract. That's law, that's state law. And if you refuse to do that, then there's a grievance, and there's a grievance process where an arbitrator will determine, well, I'm going to read this clause, what does that mean? Are they uniformed employees? Are they below the rank of assistant chief? Are they in the fire department? And the answer to all those questions is clearly yes. And that gets to the bigger issue here, which is this whole concept should be negotiated with the union. All right, there's been absolutely no discussion. We've heard from several people already tonight. We haven't talked to the union about this. We have these two firefighters, and I think you could, if you read the chief's report, I think you could imply that the two firefighters mentioned in there were in agreement with this, when in fact they were not in agreement with it. They were told to gather certain information, and they did what they were told to do. They gathered the information. And that's the extent of their involvement in this. This was not a union project. Who better, if you're a manager of a company and you want to make some significant changes, I would say extremely significant changes in the structure of your company, are you going to want to talk to the people who actually do the work and find out, is this going to work? What are the problems going to be? Should we do this? Are there other alternatives we should be considering? None of that was done. None of it. There was a very brief discussion in which the chief indicated he wanted nothing from the union. And interestingly, tonight, what do you hear about going forward? Well, I want to have this committee, and we're going to have the union involved on our committee, but the chief, I'll choose who from the union will speak for the union. So, do you really believe that at any point in this process, the chief is going to be interested in what the union has to say? You don't ask another organization to participate in something and then instruct who their representatives are going to be. That defeats the whole purpose of having their representatives there. They're not their representatives anymore, right? So, I think that gives a flavor of what's going on, and it's just not appropriate to make this kind of change without those discussions. The labor agreement has to be followed. I think there's a lot of other information that was discussed here tonight. The outline here, I think, addresses a lot of those points, and I'm not going to go through that with you given the time and how long we've been here. It's self-explanatory, and it gives you actually the reference point to those different studies. So where the information came from here, it's not just, well, I talked to an insurance broker in town, this is what he told me. Or I talked to, I've got a guy that works here, and he's told me that there's lots of people available for these jobs. Well, this is an attempt to look at that a little more comprehensively, I think, which is important. You have before you basically 4.5 pages of documentation of why you should make huge changes in the structure of the Troy Fire Department. I would submit to you that in and of itself is not enough to base a decision like this on. It's been discussed that this is a comprehensive analysis. I don't think so. I think there's a lot of things that were not exhaustive and that were not really looked at. There's no reference to other studies, for instance, that were done on this issue. This isn't the first time this has been discussed. So, what's going on in other places? We heard from Chief in Beaver Creek. Well, Beaver Creek isn't even included in the study. They're not even in there. So, we've got all kinds of anecdotal information without any specific analysis. So, what are some of the other areas that should be looked at? Well, I would submit first of all that PICWA is an extremely good comparable. Whenever the local goes into negotiation with the city, the first thing that's brought up by the city is, well, let's look at PICWA. Let's look at PICWA. And that's what we're told regularly in negotiations from the city is what's going on in PICWA. Where is PICWA in this study? They're not even mentioned, right? I mean, you want to try and at least, and I think some of the questions were very good about, well, does square miles matter? Do these matter? Shouldn't we be looking at some of the places that we routinely look to as the comparable jurisdictions? Other issues. The report suggests that the state is trending toward part-time firefighters. Well, where's the analysis that says that? I didn't see any. I didn't hear any tonight, other than people saying that's what's happening. When in fact, that's not what's happening from my experience. People are actually going in the opposite direction. You heard from some of the speakers here tonight. Beaver Creek. All right, what have they done recently? They've hired more full-time to supplant some of their part-time workers. Is that trending toward part-time? That's trending toward full-time. Other departments, I think Xenia recently looked at this idea, decided they weren't going to do it. Other places have moved away, several places have moved away from part-time work to full-time work. And I think the chief said it best, that in the best of possible worlds, what do you want? I want full-time firefighters, okay? That says something to me. That says to me that everything else you're being told, that they're interchangeable and they're all just the same, it's not accurate. These are people that are dedicated to the city, that stay here for 25, 30 years, and they are your bread and butter. Versus someone who's here and they've got 3 other jobs working in other jurisdictions. It's said, well, if one of them's off, it'll work well because we can, if they call in and they're not available, we can just get one of the other ones, right? Well, no, you can't, because those part-time firefighters that are working here one day are working in other places other days. They're not sitting at home waiting for you to call them. And the notion that, well, you know, we'll be able to attract a diverse workforce because they want these part-time jobs, I don't think so. I think the diverse workforce wants a full-time job. You heard over and over tonight. What are people looking for? They're looking for the full-time positions. People aren't looking for these jobs. They take these jobs until they can find full-time work. And you've heard that several times tonight. So what are you expecting here? And you've been told, well, the turnover rate that we heard about was 3% or 5%. No, that's not what the studies are saying. You look at the Fairfield study, what did they find? They tracked this for 3 years. 2005, the first year that they tracked it, the turnover rate was 28%, followed by 2 more years of 20% turnover. And keep in mind that by the Chiefstone calculation, the protective equipment that you're going to pay for each one of these people that comes and goes, $3,300. That's what that number is. If you divide his total cost by the 24 people, for the $80,000 number by 24 people, it's $3,300 some dollars per person. So you hire them, and according to several studies, they don't last 18 months. And they're gone. Well, you gotta spend another $3,000, and another $3,000, and another $3,000 every time. What do you get out of it? So we have a lot of different problems. We don't have training costs. I mean, we've talked about the training. So what are we going to pay for this training? And I think there's been some confusion about the qualifications, because the question was asked, and I think you were given a very, very narrow answer to your question about, are they going to be the same? Well, yes, they're going to be the same if they're firefighter twos, okay? But according to the union contract, every employee who is a uniformed firefighter in the city of Troy, below the rank of assistant chief, shall be a paramedic, shall be an instructor. And in fact, they're subject to discipline if they don't maintain those certifications. Okay? So the whole analysis here is based on a faulty assumption that you are going to be able to hire people who are not paramedics, who are not instructors, who are simply EMT firefighter twos. And you can't under your union contract. Can't do it. So if you're looking for this cadre of 24 people out there who are all sitting out there waiting for their jobs, looking for part-time jobs, and they're paramedic certified, not out there, certainly not $13 an hour. So there's going to be a problem, and they are not equally trained with people here. They are not equally trained, because all of your professional full-time firefighters are firefighter twos, but they're also paramedics and they are also instructors. And why does that matter? Well, I don't have the exact numbers, but an EMT takes about 6 months, and these might be off a little bit, but about 6 months of training. A paramedic, 2 years plus to be a paramedic. Does that matter to the citizens of Troy? When you get a call for a paramedic, do you want all the people responding in your house to save your husband, your wife, your children to be paramedics or EMTs? Does it matter? I think it matters. I want a paramedic there. I want 2 paramedics there. Okay? Oftentimes, both people are involved in the care. You want one of them just standing there saying, hey, nothing I can do here. I can watch. I can get the bag for you. That's about all I can do. The instructors, does that matter? Why does it matter that your employees right now all have to be instructors? Well, it matters. I'm sorry. Inspectors. So an inspector, their job is to go out and make sure that the businesses and everyone else is in compliance with fire code. And when one of the firefighters is in a business with a fire or with a person who's been hurt, if they're an inspector, they're going to see things because they're trained to do it, they're required to do it as part of their job, and they're going to report that back to the fire department. Is that important? Is that going to reduce the fires that may occur in the city? Absolutely. But we don't need that, because keep clear here that the part-time people under this plan that's being discussed will not be inspectors and they will not be paramedics. So to suggest that they will be equally trained is false. They won't be. And then we get to this idea that, well, this is going to be a great feeder program for our full-time people, because all these part-time firefighters will then be able to be elevated to full-time firefighters. Sounds good? Problem, you're a statutory city, and as a statutory city, you must follow state civil service law. To my knowledge, state civil service law contains no provision that gives preference points to part-time employees. So they're going to be in the same pool as everyone else that applies for that job. Secondly, the city of Troy requires that all new hires who are firefighters have to be paramedic certified. So a lot of these part-time people that have come in under the Firefighter 2 EMT standard would not even be eligible to become full-time firefighters for the city of Troy. Couldn't be. So this idea, well, we'll just move them up, feed them, it's not going to work. It can't work by state civil service law, and it can't work by the standards that are in the labor agreement right now. So these are more and more problems with this. Training costs, haven't really heard much about that. We did hear from the chief in Beaver Creek, who said that when we used to work these guys fewer hours and didn't provide them insurance, that we had a full-time captain dedicated to this training. Well, what's the plan in Troy? The plan is the old Beaver Creek plan. That's the plan. So what are you going to get? You're going to get the same thing. You're going to need a full-time employee. One of the people you already are saying that we got to have everybody out there doing their work. Full-time person, maybe even a supervisor, in training these people. Training. Okay, constant turnover. And even when you hire them, what's the hiring process? Well, we're going to see if they have a driver's license. We're going to do a credit check. And we're going to do a brief background check. Not anywhere near as in-depth a process as the full-time firefighter. Okay? So this is what you got. These are the people that you have walking into your home, milling about your home when you're not there. Is it important to have professionals? Is it important to have professionals who you do a full process, in-depth process, taking care of your loved ones? I would say it is. Is that worth a little more money? I would say it is. Okay? This isn't an area where you say, well, maybe we'll buy the cheaper garbage can and save a little money. All right? This is penny wise and pound foolish to do this to your citizens. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about the ISO ratings. And everything that I heard about that leaves me to believe that no one really knows how these ISO ratings are calculated. I heard a lot of maybes, coulds, should improve, possibly increase, don't know if it would move up. And so we don't know how this is going to play out. I can tell you though that one of the large insurance companies in the state, State Farm Insurance, doesn't use the ISO system. They don't use it. I can tell you that there are a lot of other things that go into this, and equipment is a big one. And the equipment in the city is in need of some updating. Okay? I think everyone would probably agree that that is an area. Those are fixed costs. You buy a truck, you buy a quint, there's certain types of equipment that if you purchase, that will help your ISO rating. There's other areas that have been mentioned here. The water pressure, the dispatch. Have those been looked at? Have you looked at those? I mean, we want to go to a 2, right? We don't want to stop at a 3. Nobody's even looking at these other items. Let's just hire a bunch of part-time employees. And that doesn't seem to be a good idea given all these other problems. There is another discussion about the NFPA 1710. And NFPA 1710 deals with staffing. The city has never been in compliance with 1710. And there's been suggestions of hiring 3 full-time firefighters. Could that help? I don't know. The chief said that, well, if we hired 12 part-timers, that might help. Not sure. What if you hired 3 full-timers? That's been discussed. And it seemed like a good idea recently. But we don't know. We don't know about the ISO, but I can tell you on NFPA 1710, there are all kinds of other NFPA standards that the city is not meeting right now. And just by way of example, interesting, most of these deal with training, because we also heard that training can impact your ISO rating. Well, there's a lot of training NFPA standards that the city isn't following. And I'll just rattle off 1855, 1901, 1911, 1914, 1915, 1916. Lots more, okay? But that's just giving you a couple of them. So NFPA is a wonderful guide. It is not required. It is a very good thing to have, and there's no question about it. But don't focus and say all of a sudden, after 50 years, we got to follow this one. When in fact, we never followed it, and there's all kinds of other NFPA standards we don't follow. So upgrading equipment could increase the ISO rating. The dispatching capabilities, water access, water capability, or some of the others we don't know. Health insurance was another issue that was brought up. If there are attempts to work these employees a certain number of hours over their projected shifts, that we're going to work you an extra shift and we're going to work you over here when these other people don't come in, you may be in a position where you have to offer health insurance to people. Affordable Care Act is now lowering the standards for who is defined as a full-time employee, and there's also state law that talks about offering health insurance to part-time employees. Under the current system here, if that is all these people work and no more, you're under the cap. But if you start working these people for more hours, they're going to be required to have health care insurance. They also, under the labor agreement, may have to receive health care insurance. So sorry, trying to cover a lot of ground here. So, what's looking forward, what is the best possible avenue to move, based on the information we have? And, you know, keep in mind, you all got this report from the chief last week, and so did we, so, you know, there's not been an enormous amount of time to get you everything possible, but, there had been a previous recommendation that 3 full-time firefighters be hired, and we suggest that would be a good course of action. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000. There's additional $200,000 there that we've discussed spending here, and if that money goes toward equipment upgrades, training upgrades, then those issues are also going to impact your ISO rating. Maybe more, maybe less. We don't seem to know exactly how this is done. Secondly, I think it's important that all of the stakeholders be involved in a discussion about this. And, you know, that can't happen when someone's not interested and wants nothing from the union. That can't happen. And it also can't happen when one of the parties decides who is going to represent the other party. It doesn't work. And those are some of the problems that we are dealing with. The other mentality that I think goes with this is the comment of why would we, when asked about, well, why put these part-timers in when you could hire some full-timers, is why would we pay full-time wages for someone to not be at work? And that's the Kelly Day system that we have for full-timers. And if that's the philosophy of where one of the parties is coming from, then why do we need any full-time firefighters? And that's the message that's sent. And we talked earlier in this conversation about how there has to be trust, and we're not gonna get rid of any of the full-time employees here. We're just gonna supplement. But then we hear a comment tonight, why pay full-time wages for someone to not be at work? We don't need full-time firefighters in the city of Troy. That's what that statement says to me. Okay. So that's the situation we find ourselves in. If you know, the employees here are very good, dedicated employees who want what's best for the city, who know what it's like. As indicated before, 12 of the 14 people who you have working here right now had been part-time firefighters before they got a job as a full-time firefighter. That says something about what people want. They want full-time jobs. They don't want a career part-time position going from one department to another. And they're all here. This is a huge issue. We would ask that the city not move forward with this. That if there's a desire to make changes to help ISO ratings, there's a lot of alternatives. One thing that's been discussed, you need to have 12 people available to respond to a structure fire within 8 minutes. Well, you have 8, you need 4 more. You have 2 instructors right now. Those inspectors, I'm sorry, I keep saying, 2 inspectors, I apologize, 2 inspectors. If they had take-home vehicles, they would be available to respond. You also have 2 assistant chiefs, and you have a chief. You have 5 people who could be placed in a position to respond to a structure fire within 8 minutes. That would, if what the chief is proposing would affect your ISO rating, that would affect it also, if that plan was in place. None of these questions were ever asked of the people who know best how things work from the bottom, how they could work better and more effectively. And that's just one example of a way to do this without reducing the quality of your fire service. So I thank you for your time, and we'll be available for questions at the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, Madam President, members of council, I realize that it's getting late, so I will be brief, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is John Harvey. I'm District Vice President for the Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters. I've been a firefighter paramedic for 21 years. I'm a company officer at the department where I work full-time, and been in part of the hiring process where I work at, been part of many contract negotiations, disputes, labor disputes, throughout southwestern Ohio. I cover 17 counties, 70 fire departments, ranging from members up to 800 members down to 3 bargaining unit members in part-time. So I definitely have a pretty good grasp on the topic of full-time versus part-time and some of the issues that are out there. I won't repeat a lot of what Mr. Lazarus said because it's pointless, and I think he made his point well. I do want to point out one thing, and I think this is really the most important thing that we need to consider here tonight, and that is, where this process failed is in the labor management part of this communication. When we're talking about citizen safety, when we're talking about the public, everybody should have a seat at the table. Everybody should have a say, and the best ideas should be moved forward. And I'm not sure. Well, I know that didn't happen as far as everybody being at the table and being able to move this forward. So it would be better, I think, for everybody here is if there was a well-orchestrated plan that was presented in unity for you tonight instead of what we're hearing over 2 hours of testimony on this topic. One of the big things, there's a couple things I just want to touch base on, and again, I will promise you I'll be brief. First is NFPA 1710, and the report that you have in front of you from the chief talked about staffing. And staffing is a big part of 1710, but it also, the response time is a big part of 1710, and that's not addressed here. 4 years ago, the International Association of Firefighters and the International Association of Fire Chiefs commissioned a NIST study, and that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And in that study, they studied the deployment of your staff, what it takes, what a 4-man engine company does compared to a 3-man, 2-man engine company, and all those things. Very important to what we do as firefighters. None of that's in this study. When we talk about the ISO rating, and I know there was some back and forth, in a recent trade magazine, and I'm not talking about a union magazine, I'm talking about the Fire Chiefs magazine. Let me just read you a little bit of what it says about the ISO rating. It says, at one time, almost all insurance companies calculated rates based upon the ISO rating. ISO came to your city and assessed the public protection classification, and they would then sell the data to the insurance companies. So ISO was a for-profit company that came in and collected data and sold it to the insurance companies to base your rates. Just about every aspect of a city and the fire department was evaluated in determining the ISO rating. They gave points for everything from the training, distance between hydrants, employee certification, service provided staffing, and that list goes on and on. Insurance companies have discontinued purchasing ISO-based data and used a calculated rate. Instead of using theory risk evaluation, they have opted a system where they use actual loss within a zip code. And this includes all losses, not just the fire, flood, lightning, hail, etc. So for us to think that the idea of adding a few more part-time firefighters that don't hold the same classifications, the same training as your full-timers, is going to magically make you have a better ISO rating is just not true. It's going to take a lot more than that. And the standard is moving away from the ISO rating. They're looking more at if your insurance rates have gone up and they say, well, there's been a lot of car wrecks in your neighborhood. Well, how does that affect me? I haven't wrecked my car. They're using data in the area, in that zip code, to determine what your rates are. So the last thing I want to talk about is the part-time. And the study wants you to believe that this combined department is a trend. Well, the trend is that volunteer departments can't meet the demand, so they're moving to part-time. Departments that work primarily part-time are trying to add more full-time. This is all over southwestern Ohio. Colerain, Delhi, Clear Creek, Forest Park. A lot of departments have looked at going backwards. My department's one of them. We put a lot of time and effort into researching the data and figuring out that long-term the cost just wasn't there. But it wasn't worth the outlay and the retention of keeping these employees. When we look at some of the problems with this, and I think that when I first looked at this, I looked at what a professional part-time person was. I never heard that term before. First I thought, well, maybe it's somebody you hire at 21, you pay them a crappy wage and no benefits, and at 65 you haul them to the old age home where they can collect Social Security the rest of their life. I had no idea, but Chief Dorston from Beaver Creek gave us a really good analogy of what maybe a professional part-time is, that you're paying them wages, you're paying them overtime, you're paying them benefits, you're giving them time off, all those things that the report is saying you don't have to do for a professional part-time position. And again, Beaver Creek is not even listed as a comp in this study. But I just want to go over a few things. When I talk to people about part-timers, about their training, one of the big things that gets brought up is the scheduling conflicts. These people work multiple fire departments, some of them 3, 4 fire departments. So they have 3 or 4 sets of SOPs they have to learn. Every fire truck is not the same. Every SOP is not the same. Every hose load is not the same. Every deployment on a fire scene is not the same. Every department has their own little intricacies, and for someone to come in after working 24 hours in Vandalia, then they're going to come to Troy and work for 24 hours, then they're going to go to Deerfield Township and work another 24 hours. All of a sudden they're working 72 hours straight with almost no break. There's nothing that mandates or looks at that, because the pool isn't there. That pool of part-time people we're talking about, it's not there. We have people working all over the place, crazy hours. That's the reality of this system. And the reality of the system is good employees being part of the hiring process are hard to find. Anybody who's ever ran a business knows that it is hard to find good employees that are dedicated to your company. Now, when you're hiring them in and you're not giving them benefits, you're not giving them wages, they're going to be less dedicated than ever to your company, your city, especially if they're from Butler Township, Vandalia, Middletown, Miamisburg, wherever. Another big thing is call-offs. They get tired. They work all these shifts. Man, I'm not going to Troy today. I live in Columbus. I'm not driving all the way down there. Forget it. I'll pick up another shift somewhere else. Tardiness. It was brought up here this evening. You get held over or called somewhere else. You're late to Troy. Well, what happens? Who fills that spot in Troy while they're waiting an hour and 15 minutes for someone to get here from Gohanna or wherever they're coming from? One more thing I'm going to leave you with. One of the studies that was in here, and one of the comparables in here is Westchester Township. Now, if you know where Westchester Township is, it's probably the most affluent, city in Butler County. And talking to them, their last test for part-time employees, 30 people involved, 7 showed up, 2 passed. Now, I don't know what kind of pool that is. That's horrible. If that's the pool of employees you have to choose from, 30 people. Now this is, if you've ever been to Westchester, state-of-the-art stations, the most modern equipment. They have $18 million in their fire levy. They got a ton of money. And they can't get people to show up there to work. So that tells me a lot. So in closing, I think the thing to do is get this labor management thing moving, get a comprehensive input from everybody, look at really who your best employees are, full-time, part-time, whatever. Look at upgrading your equipment, the equipment needs you have, and make this something that the city can be proud of. Because I don't think this is what the citizens of Troy would want out of their fire department, is dissension on what is best for them. So anyway, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.
You have anything further?
I'm Bill Schaefer. I'm currently a platoon commander, basically a line officer at the fire department. While it's true that unless my plans change in the near future, I will be retiring soon. I'd like to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to work here. It's been quite good to everyone. Been getting a lot of information, both from the chief, visiting district chief, Uni's attorney, 4th district president. One of the most correct statements I heard all night was, it's a very emotional topic. I can't tell you whether the numbers are accurate, can't tell you whether they're not accurate. I wasn't involved with it, I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. I pay attention to providing good service to the people that pay my wages, that would be the citizens of Troy. I think one of the things that's been missed by a lot of people, do I really think that you can find people to work part-time? Absolutely. You can find people who want to work. There's a lot of people who get in this profession because it's a good profession. Do I think you'll find certified people that meet the minimum certifications? Absolutely, you'll find them. May have to alter the wages a little bit, may have to alter the benefit package a little bit, may have to alter this initial plan. You could probably do it. So what are we giving them? That's what we really want to know. And that's what I would want to know. I don't currently live in the city of Troy, but if I did as a citizen, I'd want to know what am I giving up, what am I gaining? Well, the presentation is you're gaining less cost. Here's what I think you're giving up. And I hope Mr. Clark can agree with me, either side from the Troy Police Department. When you start to work here, we don't even offer a promotional test to a full-time employee until they've been here for a period of 4 years. It's called 1 year in grade. It takes 3 years to become in grade. And I like to think the reason we don't do that is because of the experience that it needs to be able to move up. Now, where do you get that experience? Well, you get someone to go to school. You go to school, they teach you how to put up ladders, they teach you how to pull hose lines, they teach you how to load trucks, they teach you different nozzles, different patterns, different techniques for getting in the building, different ways to get out if you get yourself in trouble, different ways to rescue people. You go to paramedic school, you learn how to start IVs, you learn a whole list of how to read different types of EKGs, what to do with that, the medicines you push, and you're supposed to learn how to do it under pressure. You don't. You only learn how to do that under pressure by doing it. The other thing that you're not gonna get, in my opinion, with hiring part-time, especially people who knows where they come from, and we have this problem with some of our full-time people that we hire. Again, why do we buildings have been remodeled in the city of Troy in 10 years? How have they been remodeled? What are they built with? Are they heavy timber construction? Are they new construction? How long does that new construction last under a fire? That information saves people's lives, it saves our employees' lives. I've been very fortunate, I never had to go to a family member and tell me somebody's been hurt. So, where's the low pressure water system, where's the high pressure water system? What area of town do we have to go to open valves, because in order to maintain adequate pressure, they put special valving in, but we do not have big flow rates. You have a structure fire there, we must get those valves open so we can get the volume of water. We have the pumps, we can make the pressure, we gotta have the water. That's stuff we can learn in training, it takes time. Where's the new construction houses at? If you just come to the city of Troy and drive around, there's some very nice older homes that are 20 years old that are built pretty well. How old are they? Are they 5 years old? They've been well updated, the citizens are proud of the properties, or they've just been built in the last 3 years that have the little crap, I call crappy, excuse my language, I'm a very simple person, that's good city language. Made out of pressed particle board and a 2x4 cut in half, glued together, it lasts 5 to 15 minutes under fire and floor falls through. That's what you lose. At what cost is that worth? That's what you have to ask yourself. It's, to hire a full-time firefighter is expensive, very expensive. Since I've been at the fire department, I have an increasingly aged fleet of equipment, trucks, stuff that goes on the truck. We recently were very fortunate that you guys approved money to buy a new tanker. It's a very nice piece of equipment. Why does it not have compressed air foam? It's the new technology. I'm not saying it was a bad purchase. I'm not upset that it doesn't have compressed air foam. Very thankful to have that truck. But what I'm saying is, there's more than one way to increase your ISO rating. I'm not a guru on that. I don't know. Please explore all the options and not necessarily put all your eggs in one basket. More personnel. Would I like to have more personnel when I'm in charge of a ship and we do a fire? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I want the most experience. I want people that can think on their feet. We don't hire certifications, we hire people. End of story. I want people that can think on their feet. I'll give you the perfect example. I use this. Guys on my ship, they get tired of hearing. Fire at the place that made styrofoam. Had a fire out there. Pretty common. They use pentane. They change the gas. Maybe don't use pentane to blow the styrofoam. Very flammable. Static electricity. One spark sets it off. And they teach you in fire school how to breach a wall. They needed a hole in this wall for a ventilation purpose or purpose to get through the wall. They teach you, you can cut it with an axe, you can use a chainsaw, depends what it's made out of, abrasive wheel saw, different blades and all that. And an officer gave a member, happened to be Eric Rice, so I put this, obtain some of the information. They said, we need a hole in that wall, we need it now. We're low on people. He got on a forklift, drove it through the wall, raised it up, instant hole. That's a man that can think on his feet. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for experience, people that know your city, people that have seen things happen over a long period of time, because it takes a long period of time to become very good. Unless I'm mistaken, and I could be, I think the average life expectancy at Beaver Creek was 3 to 5 years. It takes 4 years till you even eligible to be promoted. You will lose that experience with part-timers. Maybe it's necessary because of money. I don't know. That's your decision to make, but please, just take all the comments I made into consideration. Where does the power of the dollar stop? We have to have what it takes to do the best we can do. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else with presentation? I think that's all the names. Got one more?
I'll be real brief. My name is Chad Kennedy. I'm a resident here in Troy. I live at 624 Sherwood Drive. I am a firefighter from another community, so I do have some stake in this, some background and knowledge and whatnot. But tonight I was provided this memorandum that you guys got from Chief Behringer, and I looked it over, and there were 3 things that really concerned me, that stood out to me. The first one was the maintaining the career positions. To maintain the career position, what does that look like? There was nothing there to indicate, how that was gonna happen or what that looks like for the city. The second thing, was the annual monitoring and evaluating of the services that you provide. What does that look like? Because again, I was at a loss after I read it. Another red flag, and this was the biggest out of that entire report, was when the chief says that the benefits are real, that the issues are imagined. Anytime someone's giving me a research paper or something that looks at both sides of an issue to tell me that there's nothing but benefits, that just doesn't ring true with me. Everything has issues. So let's be honest and look at the goods with negatives before we start determining what we're going to do with the width and the depth of the services that we provide the community. I'm not going to go into 1710 like everybody else has, but I'm going to ask, those standards are great standards. How are we doing on the rest of our standards? Because it's like a suit of armor. If you have one good piece, that doesn't mean you're protected. Are we doing good with the rest of our standards? Do we have a whole piece of armor on that should be protecting us in the city of Troy? On the ISO, I actually had a chance several years back to look in the ISO and the impact of ISO, and that seems to be the biggest part of the weight that we're looking at here. And I was actually quite impressed when we found Mr. Dickerson willing to put some teeth behind the fact that we can change our insurance rates on ISO, because I looked far and wide. I called insurance agents and companies in Toledo, Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati. Not one person would commit to me that we could change rates based on ISO. So I caught him in the hallway, and I'm sure he can talk to me about it if he's still here, but, I asked him, I'm like, how are you able to, you're an insurance agent here in Troy, when I couldn't get anybody else to commit it? And he went on about how there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of stuff on the contents of the building, on manufacturing processes, and, as many as 180 points that go into calculating someone's insurance rate. ISO is one of them. So we really need to consider that when we're talking about making changes. You have a great list of comparable departments and Chief's memo. I'm kind of curious on those departments. I see a lot of static facts, okay? What's the history there? What was the part-time progression? How did those departments grow and what difference did it make? What impact did their staffing changes have on their ISO? Can they give you something concrete? What changes did their ISO rating have on their businesses? Can they give you something concrete? I hear lots of things being thrown around, but did it actually make a difference for these communities in your comparables? I also want to challenge you as you go home tonight and have your dinner and get ready for bed, Google these places, okay? Google the city of Troy, Google these other places that use these part-time staff and look at how they're situated. Sometimes situation has a lot. If you've got departments that are a mile away from your jurisdiction line that can come in and help you, that makes a difference. A lot of departments aren't situated that way, okay? we've heard a lot of great things from the Sinclair representative and from the Beaver Creek chief. I think that's great, At the same time, we need to look at the source of what we're talking about there. Okay, we got one, selling the Alliance membership. It's going to cost you some money. We got education there he's trying to sell. We got a department chief that's defending his processes. That's great. I'm going to challenge you to talk to a part-time member. I can introduce you to one from Moraine and one from Beaver Creek. All right, ask them what they think about it. Ask them what their day's like, what their week's like, what their month's like. And when you're done talking to him, talk to his wife or husband and talk to the kids. How many jobs has he got and what kind of impact is that on his livelihood? Okay? Because that's what you're wanting or considering when bringing here. I also looked at Chief's figures, and to bring in the 24 part-time firefighters costs $500,000. 16 firefighters is going to cost $1,500,000. But I seen nothing that gave me the math to get to those figures. I'm a comparison guy. I want to see a line-by-line comparison of where my money's going. Tell me how that money's being spent, and why is there $1 million difference between those two figures? I also seen in there that it's going to promote diversity, and I have some serious concerns with that, okay? Because if we're having a problem with diversity, then our current system is broke. Is that what we're saying? And then how is introducing part-time going to fix the issue with the diversity? Because we're going to change the hiring process. So who are you guys letting in my home? All right, when I'm not home and one of my children have to go to the hospital, who are you sending to pick her up and take her? Okay? So those are concerns of mine as a citizen here, as someone that's relying on you for the services. I think that the issue, it's very convoluted. You guys got huge responsibility weighing on your shoulders. I think right now I'm leaving with more questions than I have answers. I think there's lots of flags and concerns. I do know that I have a family here. And when I call 911, I want people to show up on my doorstep that just fall together. And that comes from working together. That comes from being a comfortable member of a team that is trained at the highest level, that exercises experienced clinical judgment, and they understand the team process with the people that they're working with. Okay? I see that in career staff. I've not seen it in some part-time staff. Okay? So I also want to know that this isn't a wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay? I really trust the chief when he says this is a good thing. It's an up and out growth. I trust that. Okay? But we're putting in place a gray area, and we all know that when things get tough, we have to adjust. Okay, and with that gray area in there, now it's not just an upward mobility on increasing career staff. Now we can look at, oh, you know what? Let's cut some fire department career staffing by attrition and add part-time to cover it. That scares me. Okay? If I knew there was a solid line, I'd be much more comfortable with it. But I think we're, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, a lot of gray there. Also, I heard you guys ask, and I'll just throw out there for the chief because you guys might want to consider or look at it later. When it comes to your mutual aid contracts, sometimes I know I've seen contracts before that actually specify the level of service that you're going to send to the department you have the contract with. So you might want to make sure of that language. Also, on someone not coming in because they get stuck at a call when they're working for another department, they may actually be covered by ORC or OAC. So something else, I can't remember exactly what the language is, but there might be some protections in there, especially for volunteer people. So something to look at. But in summary, I want to thank you guys for the great job you do. I love living here. My wife and I and children, we enjoy the community. I think you do a great job. I even want to thank the chief. It's not hard. It's not easy being the chief. You have to make hard decisions sometimes, and it's lonely being at the top. So I think this is not probably the right direction from what has been presented to me to this point. But most of all, I want to thank your career firefighters, because it's your career public safety staff that let me and my wife sleep well at night. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it appears we've taken in a lot of information tonight. It appears a lot of time could have been saved by staffing analysis if it would have included better communication and conversation within the invested parties. But that said, I'll go around the table and ask council members for any questions they have at this point. And then we will close for tonight, and we will take this back and consider it. This council will decide whether or not they're going to have another meeting or what direction we're going to go from here. So I'll start at the other end of the table this time and ask Mrs. Snee if you have any further questions at this time.
Not at this time.
Mrs. Zoda, questions?
Madam President, I just had to smile during Mr. Kennedy's presentation when he talked about diversity. I have the same thing written in my notes. How is this going to change diversity? I don't know who wants to answer.
I believe that there are female firefighters that work part-time out there that we could possibly hire. I know in our last test, on our last test, I believe we had 74 individuals sign up to take the test, one female. We had no other minorities. I don't understand why the city of Troy can't attract the full-time people. But I know in my travels, I've seen several part-time individuals who are female and other minorities. It's nothing concrete, it's speculation. But I struggle to find an answer for why we can't attract other individuals to take our entrance exam for full-time personnel.
I don't know if diversity is legislated or not. I just would rather hire somebody who's qualified and really care about the diversity of it. Thank you. That's
Sure.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of
part-time, safety things, but putting that in a format, that's easier to digest than just three big studies that are just the opinions of those three people that did the study. There were some discrepancies, I agree with him. But I do appreciate, the hard work of our, firefighters in that service, because you've been doing this job with that minimum staffing, excellent. So I commend each and every one of you for that, so I appreciate the service that's provided.
Mr. Reed, any more questions? Alright, right. Okay, I can assure you that this council will take seriously everything that they've heard tonight. And, we will be meeting again at some point, we'll have to determine when that might be. And, just keep your eyes open for the meeting time. I appreciate everybody's efforts tonight, and including councils and all the firefighters and so forth. Thank you all for being here, our guests this evening, we appreciate your time. Yes.
Mr. Schweizer did not receive one of the binders of one of the other councilmen, so if there's another binder that could be provided, we'd appreciate that.
We can get that.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Meeting is adjourned, thank you.